Thank you for joining Associated Luxury Hotels International for this episode of Beyond the Meeting Room. Named as National Honorable Mention in the 2024 Folio Eddie and Ozzie Awards and the 2025 Central Region Gold ASBE winner by the American Society of Business Publication Editors. Beyond the Meeting Room is hosted by ALHI's President and CEO, Michael Dominguez. Each episode, ALHI shares candid conversations on a variety of topics to enhance your personal and professional life. Discover the perfect blend of Texas Hill country charm and the vibrant spirit of Austin at Omni Barton Creek Resort and Spa. Set among rolling hills and sweeping vistas, this resort features over 76,000 square feet of flexible meeting space and 493 beautifully appointed guest rooms, ideal for groups of any size. Guests can connect through championship golf, the award-winning Mokara Spa, and 9 unique restaurants and bars. Whether you're planning a productive meeting or a peaceful retreat, Omni Barton Creek offers an authentic Texas experience. Stay just minutes from downtown Austin, yet feels worlds away. Today we are joined by Kelly Monahan, an organizational behaviorist investigating the human side of workplace evolution. She and Mike discuss the importance of maintaining our humanity in the age of AI, reinforcing company culture through leadership, and how to prioritize in-person connections in this digital age of technology.
All right, Kelly, welcome to our Beyond the Meeting Room podcast. And I am super excited about this conversation because we had a little bit of dialogue when you were with us earlier in the year. And this was a conversation that I thought was unique and impactful, but we could go in so many different directions. And I know the audience is going to learn a ton from you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I'm excited, and let's go in all the directions, wherever you want to take us today.
No worries at all. First and foremost, your conversations was around AI, and I will tell you that when we get ready for any of these events, everybody talks about, okay, I want to talk about AI. What about AI do you want to talk about? I mean, it's such a broad statement, and I thought it was unique. And if you could maybe share with the audience, you were looking at AI and the impact it has on the human side of our businesses, which I thought was fascinating because I've never had anyone talk about, don't forget how technology impacts human beings. Can you talk a little bit to that, like at 30,000 feet?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you're starting with this question because we've never seen a technology come out that has been so hyped in the news, the media. No other technology has gotten this much attention with actually so little tangible evidence or proof to go behind it. And so everyone wants it, but no one quite knows exactly maybe even what it is or where to get started. So if you're in the audience today and not even quite sure where to get started, that is the majority in terms of reality of where people are with AI today. But as a researcher, what I'm most interested in is helping executives think through what is the human impact. Because it's not just AI that is keeping leaders up at night tonight. It is the macroeconomic conditions. Many leaders today are navigating a very uncertain environment. And so whether it's tariffs or inflations, we just don't know what the future holds. That's always been the case, but the uncertainty has also maybe been a bit hyped as well as we look to the media. The second thing that's happening is Gen Z is starting to take more and more leadership roles within organizations. So think of Gen Z as someone aged between 21 all the way up to 30. And that age group has overtaken baby boomers in the workforce. And so they want to work differently. They have different value system. And so we're all trying to navigate with this new expectation of work that's coming in from this generation. And then at the same time, we know that people are burned out and exhausted. And so we're trying to incorporate this new technology and really, as Gallup would say, just an exhausted, mistrust workforce. And so these are all the dynamics that I think make the AI conversation so much more interesting and impactful because it's not just AI. It's AI and macroeconomic uncertainty, right. AI and Gen Z, AI and exhausted workforce. How do you as a leader actually raise to that altitude and see the systems that are happening in the intersections? And that's what I study.
Oh my God, I love that. And look, I'm one that we talk about a philosophy of connecting the dots. And I love what you just said because I talk about major issues that we have either in business or society. And I think we've made them A or B. And candidly, the answers are C, D, E, F. And,
absolutely.
And that's where I think we get stuck as leaders that we think it's simple. And I always say, look, most of these issues we're trying to solve for, they're complex. They're very complex. And there's not an easy solution, which means I got to stay focused on it if I'm going to make any intention. One of the things I'll add to what you just said that I think is, it's more on the geopolitical spectrum.
Sure.
I think something that was missed, and I talked about a lot last year as we were leading into it, and now we're dealing with the ramifications of it. 60% of the world GDP had an election last year. Yeah. 40 countries had an election last year. And I think what makes this even more challenging is that not only do we have a reset of a geopolitical trade system, but you're resetting it with new leaders in every European country except for France, new leaders in Canada, new leaders in Mexico. Everywhere around the world in the Western Hemisphere, you have new leaders. And as I say, that's good and bad because there is no baggage from a Trump .1 administration. So, but the bad is you've got to learn each other. You've got to understand each other. And I think that's where some of the misreads are coming from, Kelly. When you say like overhyped sometimes, I think where some of the misreads are, we're on the outside not understanding. People are getting to know each other and they need to learn how to trust each other. And that takes time. But that's why I think that's one of the many reasons I think this is so clunky, the way this is all processing. But it's, and that's a technical word. It's clunky.
Clunky. Right? I love it. Let's research that. Clunky is your process.
but I'm putting that up on top of that 30,000 foot view you were talking about, because that requires more time. That's the only reason I put that out there.
Oh, I love that, Mike. And I think, one of the things that it reminds me too of the presentation, and one of the questions I started off with, is a lot of the questions that feel maybe new, especially to Gen Z coming to the workforce, have been evergreen. And so when it comes to how do you train and develop your workforce, we've been struggling with that since the 1920s and 30s. When it comes to how do you get technically trained managers to actually engage more, and I don't like to use the word soft skills, but engage more in the influencing and capturing the hearts and minds of people, we have struggled with that for at least 75 years. And so part of, I think, to what you're saying too, is we're seeing this newness of leadership who may be framing the questions differently, or maybe having a different approach of how we solve these problems and pressing issues. But at the same time, I would almost argue a lot of what we're talking about are evergreen societal issues and business problems that I'm not quite sure are going to go away the next 15 or 20 years, no matter who's in charge. And so I think it is somewhat humbling to be reminded so much of today is just a repeat of what has been and will be in the future as well.
Yeah, I like that, because I think that's accurate. That these are things that, I joke about. If you pick up a Harvard Business Review over the last 20 years, they're talking about emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And we're still trying to teach people about emotional intelligence that are in these leadership roles. It's never going away. And it's things that we're going to continue to have to focus on. But I think it comes back to where we started. It always comes back to, are we spending enough time with the human aspect of what we have to do with our jobs? Because to me, that's the secret sauce. If you want to be successful, you're going to have an engaged group of people. And Kelly, I'll tell you, look, in my 40-year experience, what I've always shared with people, I live by Pareto. I'm never going to make 100% of the people happy. Nothing in the world. I think Pareto applies to everything in the world. Yeah. It really does. And when I look at life, when I look at my numbers, it's 80-20. It's always the 80-20 rule. And I think that's applicable. I try to keep it 90-10 when it comes to people.
Sure.
But if 90% of my people are highly engaged and we're highly functional and we're working, maybe it's the 10% that we have to work on. How do they fit in here? Not necessarily that I have to change it. Like they're not, for one reason or another, they're not connecting. Let's figure out what that is. Yeah. But for 90% of the people, what we're doing is functional. And I think sometimes that's the miss, that I'm always going to have my 10%.
Yes.
But sometimes I've seen people try to overcorrect for the 10% to say, look, for 90% of the people, it's working. So let's figure out why it's not, because there might be some unique circumstances that we need to address, but it doesn't mean I have to break the entire process.
That's
Does
right.
that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, I think most organizational leaders today, if you had 90% engagement scores, we'd be jumping up and down. I mean, the most engagement scores I see are much closer to the 50s and 60s these days, which is in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
But I totally agree with you. I mean, Edward Deming said this best too in the 70s, that a bad system will outperform a good person every time. And I think our job as leaders is to make sure that we have a good system in place so that those 90% can be their best selves and come in and do meaningful work and work that's engaging. But it's like, how do we build this system that does that so it's actually scales to the 90%? So I love that way of thinking.
Yeah, and something we've talked about earlier, just on an earlier podcast, I was talking about, especially with ALHI specifically, but I believe this in organizations, like culture is paramount for us, but it's not just words. And if you're going to have an engaged group, it's because they felt like they belong and they felt like they're seen and they're part of this culture. And I think too many organizations think about culture external versus internal.
Absolutely.
And with us, it's only internal because it's just the way I look at the world is if all of our people are understanding that our culture, there's two literally non-negotiables. We will be kind and we will respect each other.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, you won't be here. But that's not a high bar. I'm asking you to be a nice person. Yeah. And the thing is, though, if we treat each other with respect and we treat each other with kindness, I never have to worry how they're treating a client or a member hotel. But I see too many organizations like, here's the rules for our clients, but I'm going to let behind the door everybody treat each other poorly. That is where I think things kind of go askew. And especially when you have those young leaders, because they want to be respected and they want to be heard. Doesn't mean they're right. It just means they need to be heard.
Yes. It's such an interesting perspective because it's funny. I'm originally from Rochester, New York. And so there's a grocery chain called Wegmans. And those who are familiar with Wegmans, people love Wegmans. If you're familiar with Wegmans. And it's been so interesting because their leadership philosophy was so many companies start with, putting the customer first and then the employees maybe after shareholders and some other things. But Wegmans' philosophy was we're going to put employees first, even before customers, because if we put our employees first, our customers will by extension be first in their minds. And it's just been this really interesting philosophy that's, been debated in MBA textbooks of whether or not it's right. But I think their success speaks for itself. And they also have made sure not to expand beyond their ability to create care and kindness for their employee base, knowing that the more they scale, and that gets harder to do, as you start getting further and further away from the epicenter of leadership as you grow. And so anyways, I think it's a really interesting philosophy. Like, I don't know if always putting employees versus customers, or that's in some ways it's like both should be first. Yeah. But I think it's just an interesting mindset because it goes with what you just said. If you're treating your people right, they will take care of your customers, and that becomes less of a focus for you.
Yeah, and I maybe it's Pollyanna, but I also think if all that happens, then the monies will take care of itself.
Yes.
I mean, it all comes from how we're going to treat people when it's all said and done. And I do know Wegmans. I lived in New York for 3 years. So,
oh, did you? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, what a small world.
I was going to say, if you've never heard of HEB, HEB is the Wegmans of Texas.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and HEB is not outside of Texas. They started in San Antonio. But when you hear about HEBs and they're opening, I think they've opened up their sixth one recently. They had never been in Dallas, in the area, in the Metroplex. They now have 6 that opened. HEB on the first day, I live in Frisco, Texas. The first day they opened, this Frisco HEB, it was the first one in the Dallas area, $1 million in sales the first day. They had traffic cops out literally handling the lights because you could not keep up with the amount of people that were coming into this thing. So it's kind of like a cult, Kelly, but it's kind of like that Wexman thing. And they believe the same thing, though. They take care of their employees. And the reason their openings are so successful, 50% of the people that were working for the first 2 weeks opening were flown in from all of their other HEBs to show everybody what it's supposed to look and feel like when it's all done. Yeah. And they're famous for their community work in their communities that they live and breathe. And what's interesting is, like with the Kerrville floods, when those were happening, there were pictures here in Texas. There were 18-wheelers on the road already, and it's all HEB products going to Kerrville to help give food and supplies to everybody that needs them.
Yeah.
No questions asked. But you saw this, they have their own distribution center. I mean, they built this thing
Yeah.
around community and people, and it's why it's cult like
Yeah.
for
Sure.
people to go to HEB because there's a loyalty to them because they're loyal to their employees and their community, which I
Yeah.
just think is special.
I do, and I think it's so funny as you're talking about this. I'm just reflecting of why don't we have this anymore? I think to your point, like we've almost lost what good looks like when it comes to a healthy business model functioning within a local community, and then being able to scale and globalize as appropriate. And I just something has gone amiss, and partly I don't know if this is also coming out of the pandemic and just everyone trying to get their footing of what the new
Yeah.
normal looks like, and I've heard some executive leaders tell me why they've been pulling back so much in their employee programs and some of the investment in their employees as they over rotated during the pandemic. And
Right.
now again, they're trying to find that medium, but now they're kind of swinging too much to the other side to say, well, we actually put so much care during those 2.5 years. We need some of that budget back to go do something else. And so it's almost feeling like this pullback on the employee side. So I don't know if we actually have a really good model of what good looks like right now to
Yeah.
navigate the economic uncertainty, but also just be kind to and coexist within your local community. I can think of actually very few businesses today that are doing that well.
Yeah, I think the investment just matters. And,
Yeah.
it's if I'm going to overinvest, I'm okay telling my board I'm spending it here because
Yep.
we think it's important. And yes, it's not an expense, it's an investment because
Yes.
we're investing in our greatest talent, which is our talent. That is
Yes.
it. And I think that's the miss in what you say because there's such a focus on, let me get to this bottom line. Um, I,
Absolutely.
I know in most organizations, it's all, even if I'm publicly traded, it's
Yep.
about setting the expectations. And if I'm telling you that, I'm like, come on, that is really going to make or break. And that's the material number when we're talking about the big, it's not, when we
Right.
do the trade, we're just making those choices instead of other choices. And I think it's important to always make a choice where your team's winning, when
Yes.
it makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, I think to your point, I think one of the things I've always like thought about would be like a product that's needed for executives and leaders is a trade-off calculator. We do that I think really well in the
Yeah.
healthcare and like insurance side. But if you end up pulling back on this is going to be the longer term consequences of what you're likely to experience and like how do you make the human side more visible so you can begin to do exactly what you just said. It's not an expense, it's an investment. But I think because finance drives so much of that conversation on the P&L, it is an expense, is how it's being captured and being reported. And that mindset shift is so necessary. And I just think we need to do a better job, probably in HR, to make these trade-offs much more visible.
Yeah.
And economists have like this term called externalities, where it's
Yeah.
like all the bad stuff that happens, right? Oh, there's pollution. That's where it's going to put that as an externality cost. And I worry there's so many externalities that are beginning to occur that we're just kind of brushing off that I think actually have long-term devastating consequences to the humans and obviously the communities in which they serve as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I try to live it. It was a benefit I had in my past life that we've now
Mm,
introduced to all of our executive leads and down to our RVP levels. But my goal is by next year is to open this up to all of our GSOs. I kind of test ran it first, and
okay.
it's sending all of them to an executive day at the Mayo Clinic. And it is
Oh,
going from start to finish. And if you've never done it, I will tell you there's
yes.
nothing like it because you're going through every possible test you could ever imagine. And the beauty is you start early in the morning and at the end of the day, you're sitting with your doctor and they have all your results so that you
Wow.
can really talk about a game plan and what you should be doing. And I can tell you that, the first year we did this and I introduced it
Yeah.
to our team. One of our team members, her breast cancer was found during that program, and
Oh my
she
God.
had she had nowhere on the agenda, and it was a great outcome because they caught it early. We've had others that have just really have reset their life because they didn't know they had high blood pressure and they had other issues. And you look at them now, and they're fitter than they've been in a long period of time. It's all about health, and my point to them is, guys, I care about one thing. I want you to be healthy.
Yeah.
And if you're a healthy a team member, the rest of it will take care of itself. I'll know what the work looks like. But I want you to know that health is important. And as I've told many of the team members this year, I can't legally force you to go. but I'll be highly disappointed if you don't make the appointment, you know? I want them to
Absolutely.
understand because you need to care about yourself as much as you say you do, and as much as I know you care about your team members.
Yep.
And, we always have this philosophy, that you've heard the thing, you got to put on your mask first
Yep.
before you put your mask on a child. It's
Sure.
kind of that mentality. But the reason I'm telling you that, Kelly, the people that have gone through it, that had never experienced it, when they go through it, the thank yous I get afterwards and them knowing that we care enough about them
Yeah.
to send them through something that can be life-changing, but in other words, really in other terms, really gets them focused on health and wellness. These people will run 100 miles for you
Sure.
because
Absolutely.
you're living your words to say, I care
Yep.
about you.
Yep.
Care about you as a human. And by the way, we pay for their air. We pay for the hotel stay the night before. Just go do it. We
Yep.
just want you to get this done. And it's really set for people that travel a lot. So my goal for next year, because I have all these global sales executives traveling all
Yep.
over the place, is that all of them will be able to do this and be able to get that appointment. I'm only using that as an example. It's not to say, look at us. It's to say
Yeah.
that kind of investment in your team members just goes a long way. And it's a conscious choice we made
Yeah.
to make that investment, when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Well, I'll shout for the rooftops for you.
Yeah.
I think that is a great model. And it's funny, as you're talking, I think the one thing where my brain is going is that is one of the best ways you can future proof your workforce too in the age of AI. As we think about AI is going to end up doing some really great things, in terms of writing and coding and being able to take on executive comms and admin type work, even more so in Scalus. But that's going to place even more emphasis on making sure that we as humans are able to show up the best that we can be as biological human beings. And we just, like in the work world, have just totally have thrown out any sort of biology of performance in terms of actually capturing how do we actually get to an engaged workforce? How do we make sure I become a great leader? Well, if I'm not sleeping, I'm unhealthy, I'm on the cusp of, a heart attack. I don't care how much you're pushing me or how much you pay me. That's not going to actually bring me to an optimized sense of performance. And
Right.
so I just love how you're thinking about that, because I actually think that's probably one of the most tangible ways we can make sure that we're keeping humans human in the age of AI is by focusing on what makes us uniquely human. And that's something that AI is never going to be able to take away.
I love that. I have a friend of mine that he works with Forbes and he works on a program called Share Care. And what
Okay.
they realized is there was an ability to bring the medical side of what we want from an HR perspective with travel. And that's why how this ended up in Forbes, because all the research tells you if you want to reengage, if you want to connect, if you want to solve most problems, travel is a great solution for it.
Yes.
Being able to travel is one of those things. And what they've ended up doing is like ShareCare, a large company, and you'll have large major brands, they'll actually deposit into the accounts for their employees money that is set aside for the travel program. But the monies keep on adding up when you do your doctor's visits, when you do your annual checkup, when you do your
love.
mammograms.
Yep.
And it keeps feeding it, but to say, not only do we want you to do that, but now we're going to help let you go travel because we know this is good for the human soul. But is
Yes.
really good to reinvigorate. So I love that people are starting to focus on it. To have these
Yes.
kind of programs are very, very cool. And then I'll go a little bit further than that. I always say travel to me is the university therapy because
Yeah.
or universal therapy. I think it could solve a lot of the ignorance and bigotry we
Yes.
have in our world when you start to experience other cultures and realize how different people are depending on where they live or where they're from,
Oh, Mike, I'll share a personal anecdote based on that because I couldn't agree more. So, I'm part of the Academy of Management, which is just like a research community for those of us that study leadership. And this year, for the very first time, for 85 years, it's been in the US. This was the first year, it was in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so, as an American, you read all the headlines and you kind of get down and out a bit of like, are we heading in the right direction? As someone who studies a lot of like the downfalls of, I call it unbridled shareholder capitalism, where it has gone us a bit astray when it comes to keeping the human in focus. You just kind of have this certain mindset and you become very Americanized. So I get over to Denmark and I'm at the Academy of Management, just like interacting with my colleagues who are all from around the world. And it was just such, again, a humbled reminder of how good we actually have it in many ways. because so many of these professors were like, oh, Kelly, man, I would love to research in the US. There's still, just better access to technology and tools and resourcing. And then we had this whole conversation of like, and you have the ability to get rich. Like if you work harder, you have, an ability to continue to earn income. Like we tend to get capped out on this side. And like, just again, hearing all the different social structures and the ways that we have operationalized the business world and commerce across the world, it does make you appreciate like, hey, here we're never going to see a headline, right? Of how good things are going. And so I think it was just a helpful thing to your point. Travel is so good for the soul, but also I do think makes us kinder because it allows us to realize, wow, here's what I do have. And here's perspective that I didn't have until attending this meeting and being exposed to such international thinking.
Yeah, I love that because I travel internationally a lot for business and conferences for the hospitality industry. And I'm like, yeah, we have our warts, but we are still a wonderful country in the way we're built. And, capitalism is actually a good thing as long as it's reined in and done appropriately. But to the point, if I work my tail off, I can do just about anything that I want to do with the right work and the right focus and the right appreciation. And I love that concept. And I will tell you, I was in, it's one of our big shows called IMEX Frankfurt.
Okay.
And I was there in May. It's every May it happens. It's one of our big industry shows. And, all this craziness is going on. We had Liberation Day and April 8th and the world's kind of going crazy. And I'm in it because I stay away from where I end up staying. I always have to take an Uber every day to get to the conference center. I'm jumping in the Uber and I get that dreaded question. It's like, where are you from? It's like,
do I say?
Yeah. And I'm like, United States, Kelly, and 9 rides, every single person said, oh, I love the US. I can't wait to visit. I can't wait to see it. It was that conversation. And I think we so get sucked into the media that does the media care about it? Do the governments care about it? Yeah, but for most people, when they want, especially when it comes to travel, if they want to travel to the U.S., they're coming to the U.S. and they really aren't worried about the politics of it. And I joked, like, when I go to Italy, I really don't care about Italian politics. I want to go see the Vatican.
Right, exactly. Go to Venice.
That way I'm going.
Totally. Yeah, no, I just think it's good to keep everything in balance and perspective. And I think it's so easy because of all the technology. And this is what I am worried about. AI is making sure that it does not have us all think alike in some ways. Because, from a large language model perspective, the way it's programmed, again, there's ways that we can tweak it and there's going to be some safeguards over time that get developed. But for the most part, it is going to mimic a little bit what you think. And from a collective perspective, it's going to give you the mediocre answer. And if we really want greatness and continue to aspire, I think we're going to need more than just AI to get us there, because it's just going to be wired to the dominant discourse. And I'm not sure the dominant discourse is that healthy right now, to be honest. And so it's like, how do we rise above that and really make sure that we don't lose our humanity? And it's, Brene Brown says this that I love, also from Texas, but it's hard to hate people up close. And I think that's what travel does too. It gets you up close to others.
I love that. That is really great. I think it's interesting because I saw this. She was a Gen X comedian recently, and she had a reel going around. It was just hysterical. But she's talking at a university. So it's a university crowd. It was on campus, and she's going, we used to do this thing in my day. She goes, I don't even know if I can say it. And she goes, oh my God, it's kind of crazy, but it was called critical thinking. It was brilliant the way she delivers it. She goes, look, this is how we did it. We listened to one point of view, we listened to another, and we actually formed our own opinion. Isn't that nuts?
Oh my God. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, it's like you have to laugh or else you're going to cry about it, right? In some regards. And here's my thing. Like, I don't know if you have any tips or pointers. Here's what I get concerned about in the research that I see is that individuals, especially the knowledge worker side, that are using AI are freeing up, let's say, on average, anywhere between 15 to 25% capacity.
Right.
Now, the thing is, that is where the critical thinking time come in. And that is where the reflective human connecting time could come in. But what I worry is what the research is showing us, what most people are doing with that free capacity?
Scrolling.
Correct. And it's like, how do we solve for this? Because it's like AI is going to help us and it will it will allow us to take away some of our critical thinking if we don't actually preserve that free time. And so I don't know, like from from an organizational design perspective and how we think about roles, how do we make sure that that is intentional time that leaders are focused on right now and capturing for upskilling, for human connection, doing those things that we all say we want to do at work anyways, and that we all value. And I just worry that AI is going to actually continue to drive us towards idleness and disconnect, as opposed to actually getting us outside of our offices and outside of our desks to actually go connect with others during that time.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think and this is what you and I talked about, if we're not going to be intentional on how we implement it and how we program and how we actually program our days, we're going to end up there. And I could not agree with you more. And that does concern me, because I look at the amount of time people spend when it's free time scrolling, versus, and I will tell you something though, Kelly, I've been people watching like on the weekends, Hey, here's another crazy thing. Like here in the South, being in Texas, we actually have shopping malls and they're full on a weekend. I mean, packed. And I always joke, because you remember during the pandemic, malls are dead. Nobody's ever going to go back. I go,
movie theaters, all of it.
I mean, I can't find a parking space trying to get there. But you know what my wife and I have been watching, and these are the younger 20, anywhere between 16 and up to in their early 20s. They're never on their phones. They're walking around the malls. They are talking with their friends. And the one thing I always stress, that is the true digital generation. They grew up with it from day one. Yeah. And when they're together, they're not on their devices. Yeah. And we sit there and watch, and it's all the teenagers and the young 20-something-year. And then I see 40-year-olds walking by on their devices with their kids with them and not paying attention to it. And I say that because it gave me hope. Yeah. That we have a younger generation coming in that when they have free time, they're not scrolling, they're actually talking. Yeah. And they're hanging with friends and they're doing those things. And I think there's this little gap in between, but I couldn't agree with you more. We have to pay attention to it. I just point that out because that gave me hope.
Oh, I love that. Yes, 100%. I mean, it's going to be so interesting, and this is where like we just need the neuroscience to catch up and all the other disciplines. But there's no doubt to me that Gen Alpha, those age, probably 16 and below, their brain is going to be wired differently than you and I. Like I didn't grow up with a device. I wasn't until college until I got it. It was like one of those track phones you had the minutes on, and all you could actually do was call. And so like our brains are just wired differently. And I think the next generation, like that does give me hope in human evolution and being able to adapt. Our perspective versus their perspective is going to be wildly different. And I am hopeful over the long term that they will begin to rein in these devices and use them appropriately. And again, maybe there's going to be even somewhat of a renaissance of in-person experiences and connection, because I think it's desperately needed today.
Yeah, I could not agree more again. And I think it's interesting because I was with my 3-year-old granddaughter over the weekend. And all we do is play. And look, they have TVs, they have devices, they have all that. We played with puzzles, we drew, not because we chose it, because she chose it. And bought a Play-Doh kit. And I played with more Play-Doh than I played in a long time, because all she wanted to do is roll the Play-Doh, and I had to redo it and pack it up. And the thing is, you tell her we could be doing anything. It's like, you want to go to the park? Poof, she's out the door before we've even finished, because she just wants to go to the park. And that's where I have hope that we sometimes, with all the noise, we think the world is changing so dramatically. And I look at kids today, and as long as they get parented that way, and that continues, I have hope for that. Yes. And that's where I'm like, okay, I got to separate. It's the people in the middle that I'm all worried about.
Exactly. 1,000%. Yes. The Gen Xers and elder millennials, where we may be in trouble.
It's everywhere in the middle. We're starting to worry about it. But I agree with you. It's like that time should be spent with human interaction. And, one of the things we do as a company that I think, because of what you just said, I force everyone to stop. And by doing that, or the way I do that, is I bring the entire organization together 3 times a year. The entire company. And we come together, and it's face to face, and we don't waste a lot of time. It's only for a day. Yep. But we always start with an evening of a little bit of education on what we're doing, what's going on with us. a little bit of a, opening reception / dinner. And then we move in, and in the morning we're rolling up our sleeves, and
Yeah.
we try to do a lot of open conversation, but there's also what do we need to stop doing? What do we need to start doing? What's
Yep.
working? What's not? It's those conversations. And it is really to call a timeout.
Yes.
Can we all just call a timeout? Because I said our strategy was 90 days ago may be completely different today with circumstances changing.
Completely.
And,
Yes.
but we tend to lower our head and run 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
So I think that is even more critical for organizations today. And I'm not sure they're intentional enough about it.
Oh, not at all. I think that's brilliant, because I think what I see happening more so at scale, which is, I'm concerned about, is, to your point, it's so heads down focus. It's so running a million miles per hour. And there's this anxiety that I need to keep up, and I've got to figure out how to incorporate AI. There's an anxiety at the board and leadership level that I haven't seen across, multiple industries, but especially in, tech and professional services. And I think what I fear is, but you have teams running in the wrong direction. And if you had just taken that moment to pause and taken everyone offline for a day or two to realign, I think that's brilliant, because if not, you're getting ahead of things and making sure that everyone's aligned, moving in the same direction. Because it is so easy to get, to use another technical term here, out of whack. It's so easy to get out of whack today. And really, someone's going here and someone else is going there, and the piece of information you had is now outdated, and no one knows. And so I think what's also just alarming is one of the stats I shared, back earlier at the conference. 42% of US employees today don't even know what their why is for the organization. It's not just the mission and vision, but it's like, really, how are we different than our competitors? What is the value we're adding? 42% of people every day are showing up to work and don't actually know what that is. That, to me, is because that's a human disconnect. And by bringing people together 3 times a year, you are reinforcing and making sure this is why we're here. And it's just that reminder that I think is missing in so many organizations today.
Yeah. How many times have we heard over the last 15 years, start with the why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
yes.
but seriously,
Yeah,
it's like,
it's true.
it still isn't there. And
Yes.
that's why I'm saying that it's something that we all know intuitively is important, but
totally.
And what we've seen, Kelly, the beauty of it is the trust in the team members amongst themselves, because they're together so frequently.
Yeah.
And most of the company's remote, except for our
Sure.
corporate headquarters. So bringing them together, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And, and it's what you just said. It's harder to tell somebody no as well when you've looked them in the eye.
Absolutely.
And when it's in person, that becomes very different. And I think that kind of changes it. And I know organizations do it sometimes because they're checking the box. They do the one meeting a year
Absolutely.
to come in. And look, I get if you're thousands and thousands of employees, that's a different economic discussion.
Sure.
But for the majority of the US, 70% of our companies are small businesses. And if you wanted to, if this is where you thought it was important, this is where you'd put the investment.
Yes.
And like, if I'm trying to save money for next year, it's not that.
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
looking at, maybe we don't do 4 issues of our magazine. Maybe we only do 3 next year.
Yeah.
But I'm losing my face-to-face meetings that we have. And that's going back to our original conversation. That's an investment into our culture and our people that actually matters.
Yes. I love it. Huge mindset shift needed. And I'm so thankful, Mike, for you and your company, and just having a different path. Like, the different paths are available. And I think that is, like, when I talk to executives a lot, it's like, well, show me who's doing this well. Like, how can we think about this? And I think we just need to surface these use cases much more frequently and be the louder people in the room. Because I think, again, like, it's so dominated and so noisy out there of maybe everything that's going wrong. And I think these are perfect examples. And again, at the end of the day, most of this is low hanging fruit. It's moving with more intentionality. It's being more thoughtful and reflective. It's seeing people as an investment, not a, cost. These are things that are, in my mind, aren't going to take a drastic reinvent of your operating model. It's more of how you think and how you operate than anything else. And so I just think, anyways, it's so exciting to see that there's actually good out there in leadership, and that people are thinking this way.
Yeah, and and I know I'm not alone. I know there's people that think, and maybe it's because we're in the hospitality business as well. We're so people and service oriented that there seems to be a little more of that. But I do think we're unique.
Yes.
We take it to the nth level, but I do think there's a little bit more of that because of the service industry. Now that I think about it, it's probably that because we are all people oriented, and we're still Literally, I remind everybody my number one cost for a hotel always will be, always has been labor.
Yes.
It will always be because we're a service
Yeah.
industry. We will always have people. The AI, what's exciting for me is helping us free time. And this is where it's your perfect example of when you want to do case studies.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the hotel industry, because anytime we're freeing is allowing us more time to spend with the actual guest that's in front of us,
Absolutely.
because we've taken this work off the table.
Yeah.
And that's where I see you can see it visibly,
100%.
the real benefits to it, which I think are
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
Yes, I love that. I mean, again, I've been in the tech industry for a while. I think the tech industry has had an outsized impact of
Yeah.
normalizing some talent practices that aren't great. Like they're not best in class, and there's some great things we can learn from product development and going from 0 to 1 in the tech industry. But I think when it comes to talent practices and how we treat people, we've got to look to other industries. Hospitality is a great one. I think healthcare has I'm sure, some pain points and friction points right now. But again, anything that's close to the customer and actually meeting a need, I think that's where we got to look to build a more holistic playbook of how we navigate this AI world today, because it's got to be more than just tech thinking is my big piece of advice.
Oh, that's awesome. I had the privilege of working for Lowe's Hotels
Oh, sure.
earlier in my career, and John Tish. Mr. Tish was our CEO, and John, to me, was the epitome of hospitality and what that looked like. But his second book he wrote was called Chocolates on the Pillow Aren't Enough. And it was what you just said was the premise of the book, that if you're going to be great,
Yeah.
measuring yourself to your competitors is a price of entry.
Mhm.
It says if you're going to be great, you have to look at other industries and
Yeah.
other areas outside your universe to get better. And what you just said was really funny.
Yeah.
I was the chief sales officer at MGM Resorts,
Yeah.
and we worked with all these tech companies.
Okay.
And because of all of our systems, I mean, we're the
Sure.
largest
Oh, sure.
employer
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the state of Nevada. So those companies, not only did they bring their meetings, we bought their products. And I remember one of the companies that we were dealing with, they're saying, we don't think you're doing enough with us as far as the products. And they brought these big meetings our way. And I told them, I don't even know what you do. Like, I know one of your products,
Sure.
but I don't know what else you have. So we started these executive days. And the executive days, I would bring the senior executives from MGM. We would meet with their senior executives, but it would be everything from their gaming division to their HR division to their change management division. And it was trying to understand, what can I learn from that
Yeah.
we can scale right for us,
Yes.
that we might be able to advance. And then it became vice versa. Like, come learn the hotel
Sure.
industry and
Yep.
just see what we're doing to see if there's any takeaways. And one takeaway I think you'll find fascinating, the head of HR from one of these tech companies
Mhm.
came in, and they said and this would have been already more than a decade ago.
Okay.
And the head of HR said, we have trouble keeping people over 5 years, under 5 years. So they tend to turn over quickly. And they said, we've been doing a lot of exit interviews. Would you want to guess why? And I said, because you're not sexy enough? Because you're sitting here with literally Apple and Amazon and all the sexy around you.
Yeah.
And this was kind of a hardware tech kind company,
Sure.
and they said, we thought that too. And when we started to go through the data, the commentary was they came to learn from senior leadership. And because everybody worked remote a decade ago, these people were leaving because they had no access to learn from the people they came to learn from. And this was a long time ago. And all of a sudden they started to bring people back into the office so that they could actually spend time with the executives and learn from the executives that they wanted to learn. I think that's a big miss with people.
Yeah.
That they tend to forget. Like, you talk about human connection, it actually demands us being in person from time to time. I'm not saying 9 to 5,
Totally.
5 days a week. I know that world is gone.
Yeah.
But I do believe a lot of companies are moving to those 3 to 4 days a week that everybody is expected to be around, with what I think is a benefit, a lot of flexibility around that.
Yeah.
You got something going on with your kids, go, and good, we'll work it out, That's what I think there's a big benefit. But I do think the bringing people together in a human connected way is absolutely paramount. It has to.
Yes. I think you're right. And I think so many of the conversations that we've had have become so polarized. Like, we've missed the end. And like what you just described so beautifully was, we can offer flexibility and in-person time is important, and it's like those both things can coexist and be true. And I think we've just got to get creative of how do we design environments and work facilities, again, these systems that we're creating, how do we do that so those create more of those and opportunities and not have everything be either or? You're either in the office 5 days a week or you're fully remote. Neither of those models are probably what the majority are doing. And so again, how do you actually design so you can bring about the human element, which is flexibility, and connection and learning, which is so desperately needed too. So I think we've got to be creative. Like it's a failure of our imagination right now, which I think is what's getting in the way from actually taking full advantage of all the knowledge and intelligence that we have around us to making better decisions that elevate the human.
Oh my God, that takeaway out of what you just said, failure of our imagination. I love that. I love
what
that.
It is.
That is, I love the way you phrase that. That's going to be a takeaway for me.
Good.
It's going to be sticking in my head because it's like, how do you solve for it?
Yeah.
And there is it started this by saying, it's complex.
Sure.
It's not a singular answer, but I think it's intentional, Kelly. It just has to be. And I know if you want to create a great culture, it does come with sweat equity. There is no substitution for it. And there's another reason I bring everyone together. As I've told the team, nobody gets to filter my message.
Yeah. Love that.
They get to hear it straight from me on what the expectations are, because I do know what happens in companies. It's like Mike wants, or Mike said, or Mike did.
Exactly.
And no. And some of the stuff came back to me. I go, no, I don't care. I really don't. Like, you realize, and I think this is an important piece for leadership, is you realize sometimes you asking a question or making a comment or having an opinion about something, some people will take this direction depending on your role.
That's right.
And that's where you have to be very careful with your words. So me saying something about, wouldn't it be nice if we did a name tag like this? And I didn't mean at all events. And then all of it became Mike only wants this type of name. I didn't say that. It was event specific, that conversation,
So easy to take things out of context.
Yeah. And I've realized that's incumbent upon us as leaders. And I think with all the changes you're talking about that are coming, that they're coming so fast that if we don't take the time to actively communicate. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is Bernard Shaw's quote about communication. He says, the problem with communication is the illusion that it took place.
That's right.
I love the quote, and I reference it often because I think that's our challenge with leaders.
Yep.
And the changes you've shared with us that are coming.
Yeah.
What surprised me was the amount of disconnect that employees were feeling. And then I guess it doesn't surprise me when I also look at overall averages. We have the loneliest society we've ever seen.
Yes.
Ironic. And how much of it is it because of the things you just said we should all be afraid of,
100%. And maybe what I'll end on is we've never been more connected through our digital devices, but it's all artificial. And I worry that artificial intelligence is going to continue to make us artificially connected. And I think the reality is how do we get outside of this and really learn to reconnect again? Because we all have it. It's intuitive. We are, again, biological human beings. But continuing to put a device between us is creating much harm and is actually doing the exact opposite of what it should. So to me, it's a great paradox we have to solve for as leaders. It has certainly made us the ability to scale and connect globally. But if we lose sight of that local connection that I think we need, that's never going to come through devices only. We've got to get that balance right. And I think you're spot on with that communication. So much work to do as leaders. Get outside of the Zoom box, and just go connect with people. It's really, it's almost as simple as that, Mike, right? Is the diagnosis here and the solution, but how do we get people to do it?
Well, Kelly, I'm on the road every week, and it's not because I don't like being home.
Yeah.
And it's because I am connecting with either our members, our clients, and or our team members. And there's nothing that can replace it. And then you also find how thankful your team members are.
Sure.
That you're taking the time to support them and their initiatives in the market. And I'm not asking them to do anything I'm not willing to do. And I think that's where we're going to have to show up a little bit more in this time frame if we're going to get the impact you want.
Yes. Love it.
Oh my God. I love the conversation. We're going to definitely have you back after December because you're going to be with us in person. So
bring
not
some
everybody
new
in the
research
podcast
too.
knows that already. I know. I can't wait. I'm a data nerd and I can't wait for our conversation afterwards. But I want to thank you because you made me think the first time we were together.
Yes.
You made me think a lot today already.
Oh, good. Same.
But I really want to engage a little bit further down the road with this audience and bring back your new research because
Yes.
I just think this is such an important topic. And I kind of feel like you. I think we have a small window where this doesn't become a runaway train
Agreed.
that we're
Yeah.
trying to bring back. So I think your message is hugely important. So anything we can do to help.
Thank you so much, Mike. And can't wait to see you in December.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Meeting Room, presented by Associated Luxury Hotels International. ALHI is a global sales and marketing organization representing the finest luxury hotels, cruise lines, and destination management companies. For the latest industry news and to see ALHI's robust portfolio, follow us on LinkedIn and check out our website at alhi.com. To learn more about Kelly or to book her as a speaker, visit leadingauthorities.com. Discover the perfect blend of Texas Hill country charm and the vibrant spirit of Austin at Omni Barton Creek Resort and Spa. Set among rolling hills and sweeping vistas, this resort features over 76,000 square feet of flexible meeting space and 493 beautifully appointed guest rooms, ideal for groups of any size. Guests can connect through championship golf, the award-winning Mokara Spa, and 9 unique restaurants and bars. Whether you're planning a productive meeting or a peaceful retreat, Omni Barton Creek offers an authentic Texas experience. Stay just minutes from downtown Austin, yet feel worlds away.